By the 7 moons of Xylax, what in the name of cosmic entropy happened to your appendage? Dr. Kazed's translucent antennae quivered in what could only be described as pure medical horror. Sarah Chen, the only human engineer aboard the intergalactic research vessel Curiosity, glanced down at her arm with the casual interest of someone checking the time. Oh, this? Just caught it in the quantum drive manifold while I was doing maintenance. It's fine. Just a scratch. The scratch in question was a 12-inch gash that ran from her elbow to her wrist, currently leaking what Dr. Kazit's medical scanners insisted was an alarming amount of red bodily fluid. The Arthropodian medical officer's compound eyes dilated to their maximum aperture, all 8 of them focused intensely on the injury. Engineer Chen, your epidermis has been breached. Your hemoglobin-based transport fluid is actively escaping your circulatory system. How are you even conscious right now? The doctor's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress, a sound that the ship's universal translator didn't even bother to interpret. Sarah shrugged her uninjured shoulder, already reaching for her tool belt with her good hand. Listen, Doc, I've got to finish calibrating the drive manifold before we hit the Carina Nebula, or we'll be stuck in regular space for an extra week. Just slap some Medigel on it, and I'll swing by later for a proper patch job. Medigel? Medigel? If it were possible for a 9-foot-tall insectoid alien to look faint, Kist was managing it admirably. Engineer Chen, your species' casual approach to potentially fatal injuries continues to defy all rational medical protocol. The human was already halfway out of the medical bay door, leaving small droplets of blood in her wake. Fatal? Come on, Doc, I once finished a whole maintenance shift with a broken leg. This is nothing. Besides, humans are built tough. We've got redundant systems for almost everything. That's not how redundancy works, KZ called after her retreating form. And you did what with a broken leg? The doctor's protests fell on deaf ears as Sarah disappeared down the corridor, whistling what sounded suspiciously like an ancient earth tune about bottles of beer on walls. Kez slumped against his diagnostic terminal, his exoskeleton making a faint clicking sound as it contacted the metallic surface. He began typing his medical log with his secondary appendages while his primary ones gesticulated wildly in frustration. Medical log, stardate 228745. Chief Medical Officer's note. I am officially documenting my protest regarding the human crew members' continued disregard for standard medical procedures. Their species' ability to function with injuries that would incapacitate or terminate most sentient beings remains both fascinating and deeply disturbing. The doctor had barely finished his entry when the ship's intercom crackled to life. Hey, Doc? Sarah's voice echoed through the medical bay. Quick question. How many liters of blood can humans lose before it becomes, actually problematic? Kazed's antennae went rigid. Engineer Chen, return to the medical bay immediately. Yeah, that's not really an option right now. I'm kind of hanging upside down in the maintenance shaft, and I've got the quantum manifold half disassembled. But don't worry, I found some duct tape in my pocket. Humans invented it, Works on everything. The medical officer's electromagnetic stress sensors were registering readings that threatened to overload the equipment. Duct tape? You're attempting to seal a severe laceration with adhesive construction material? Well, yeah. That's what it's for, right? Fixing things? There was a pause, followed by the distinct sound of tearing tape. See? Already stopped bleeding, mostly. The tape's red now, but that's probably fine. Kays began gathering emergency medical supplies with all 6 of his free appendages. I am coming to your location immediately. Do not move. Do not apply any more primitive binding materials. Do not... Sorry, Doc. Can't hear you over the quantum drive. It makes this weird humming noise when you've got it properly aligned. Pretty sure that's a good sign. The doctor burst out of the medical bay at a speed that would have impressed his evolutionary ancestors. As he scuttled rapidly through the ship's corridors, he passed Second Officer Talax, a medusoid whose tentacles were currently engaged in reading 3 different data tablets simultaneously. Officer Talax, have you observed Engineer Chen's current location? The medusoid's central eye blinked slowly. The human? Yes. I observed her approximately 2.3 minutes ago, proceeding toward the engineering section while leaving a trail of red biological fluid and making references to something called MacGyver. Cazet's translator hiccuped over the unfamiliar term, but he was already moving past the officer. Did she appear to be in distress? On the contrary. Talax's tentacles waggled in confusion. She was explaining to me how this incident reminded her of something called That Time in College with the Welding Torch and the Vodka. I did not understand the reference, but she seemed quite amused. The medical officer's pace increased to what could only be described as a panicked scramble. He reached the engineering section in record time, his respiratory systems working overtime to cool his rapidly heating exoskeleton. The sight that greeted him nearly caused all 8 of his eyes to short-circuit. Sarah Chen was indeed hanging upside down in the maintenance shaft, her legs hooked over a support beam, while both hands, including the injured one, were deep inside the quantum drive's main housing. The duct tape she'd applied to her wound was already showing signs of giving way under the strain, and small droplets of blood were floating in the low gravity of the engineering section. "Oh, hey, Doc," she called cheerfully, not looking up from her work. "Perfect timing. Could you hand me that plasma spanner? The one that looks like a glowing pretzel?" Kazed's medical training warred briefly with his instinct to simply sedate the human and drag her to sickbay. "Engineer Chen, your injury requires immediate attention. The quantum drive can—" "Actually, it really can't wait," Sarah interrupted, finally looking up, or down, given her position. "See that reading there?" She nodded toward a nearby display. "If I don't get this calibrated in the next 10 minutes, we risk a cascade failure in the quantum field generators. Best case scenario, we're stuck in regular space for a month. Worst case?" She made an explosive gesture with her injured hand, sending a few more drops of blood floating through the air. Boom! The doctor's antennae drooped in defeat. "You have 10 minutes, not 1 second more." "You're the best, Doc. Now about that spanner." The next 9 minutes and 43 seconds were, in KZ's professional medical opinion, the longest of his career. He watched in horrified fascination as the human engineer performed complex quantum mechanics while bleeding, upside down, and cheerfully humming what his translator identified as another Earth song about the consumption of fermented beverages. Finally, Sarah pulled herself out of the maintenance shaft, performed a surprisingly graceful flip, and landed on her feet. "There, all done. The quantum drive's purring like a kitten now." She paused at Kazed's blank look. "Sorry, Earth reference. It means it's working perfectly." "Medical bay, now." The doctor's tone left no room for argument, even from a species as notoriously stubborn as humans. "Yeah, okay, that's fair," Sarah conceded, finally looking at her makeshift duct tape bandage, which was now more red than silver. "You know, it actually is starting to sting a little bit." Kazed's mandibles clicked rapidly in what the rest of the crew had learned to recognize as his equivalent of hysterical laughter. "Starting to. Engineer Chen, you have lost approximately 0.8 liters of blood. Your injury has been exposed to the quantum drive's radiation field. You have subjected it to extreme stress while inverting your circulatory system. By all medical logic, you should be, at minimum, unconscious." Sarah followed the doctor toward the medical bay, leaving a trail of floating blood droplets in her wake. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. But honestly, Doc, you should have seen me during my college engineering finals. Now that was a mess. Did I ever tell you about the time I had to rebuild a fusion reactor with a concussion? Please do not tell me about the time you had to rebuild a fusion reactor with a concussion. It's actually a funny story. See, there was this party the night before, and— Engineer Chen, I am now implementing Medical Protocol 47B, which authorizes me to sedate uncooperative patients who pose a danger to themselves. Oh, come on, Doc. At least let me finish the story first. So there I was, concussed, with only a screwdriver and a pack of chewing gum. Later that day, after finally getting his human patient properly treated, and briefly sedated for both their sakes, Kazed made his final log entry. Medical Log. Addendum. I am submitting a formal request to the Intergalactic Medical Council to create a new classification of medical hardiness specifically for humans. Their combination of biological redundancy, pain tolerance, and what can only be described as potentially suicidal optimism defies all existing medical categories. Additionally, I am requesting a ship-wide ban on something called duct tape and any stories involving the phrase "that one time in college." End log. So. In the medical bay, Sarah Chen slept peacefully, her arm properly treated and bandaged, while beside her bed, a very tired alien doctor began researching human engineering schools, determined to understand what kind of educational system produced beings with such a cavalier attitude toward personal injury. He had a feeling he wouldn't like the answers. The next morning, when Sarah bounded into the engineering section with her arm in a regenerative cast, cheerfully announcing her intention to just check on a few things, in the quantum drive, Kazed's scream of frustration was heard all the way to the bridge. Captain's log, stardate 228746. Chief Medical Officer Kazed has requested immediate stress leave. Request granted. Part 2 Dr. Kazed's temporary replacement, Dr. NX Vitrolian of the Cephalopod Medical Academy arrived aboard the Curiosity precisely 3 standard cycles after the quantum drive incident. The new doctor's first day started promisingly, with a thorough review of the ship's medical logs and a professional meeting with the captain. That serenity lasted approximately 4 hours. What do you mean, you accidentally merged with the ship's coffee maker? Dr. Nax Vitrolian's 7 tentacles rippled with barely contained medical concern as they examined Sarah Chen's right hand, which now displayed an interesting metallic sheen and appeared to be emitting steam. Well, Sarah began, flexing her partially mechanized fingers. I was trying to upgrade the coffee machine because, let's be honest, that standard-issue synthesizer produces something that tastes like filtered Starship fuel. But then I had this brilliant idea about integrating some quantum processing to optimize the brewing temperature, and one thing led to another. The doctor's chromatophores flickered through several shades of alarmed purple. Engineer Chen, according to these scans, your cellular structure has partially fused with the machine's quantum-enhanced nanites. Your hand is literally brewing coffee, internally. I know, isn't it great? Sarah beamed, holding up her modified appendage. Watch this. She concentrated briefly, and a perfect stream of steaming coffee emerged from her palm, arcing neatly into a waiting cup. I've already programmed in 17 different varieties. Want to try the quantum-enhanced espresso? It's got this amazing kick to it. Pretty sure I accidentally broke several laws of thermodynamics making it. Dr. Nex Vitrolian's tentacles coiled tightly around their medical scanner. Engineer Chen, I've reviewed Dr. KZ's logs extensively, but I don't believe they adequately prepared me for this. We need to begin immediate nano-extraction procedures before— Oh, hey, that reminds me, Sarah interrupted, taking a sip from her palm-brewed coffee. Could you look at something else while I'm here? I think I might have accidentally quantum-entangled my left earlobe with the ship's entertainment system last night. Every time someone watches a holodrama in the recreation room, I get these really vivid sensory feedback loops. Did you know Lieutenant ZX Carr has been binge-watching ancient Earth soap operas? I've got like 15 episodes of Days of Our Lives playing in my head right now. The new doctor's chromatophores shifted to a shade of white that typically indicated either extreme medical fascination or the early stages of professional panic. You quantum entangled with the entertainment system? How is that even possible? You'd be surprised what you can do with a sonic screwdriver and 3 cans of energy drink, Sarah replied cheerfully. Though I'll admit, I probably shouldn't have tried it after being awake for 72 hours straight. But in my defense, I had all this amazing coffee readily available. She wiggled her mechanized fingers meaningfully. 72 hours without sleep? While performing unauthorized quantum experiments on your own body? The doctor's tentacles began typing emergency protocols into 3 different medical interfaces simultaneously. That's pretty standard for an engineering crunch week, honestly. Sarah shrugged. You should have seen my college days. This one time during finals week, I accidentally created a temporary quantum singularity in my dorm room while trying to build a more efficient coffee maker. The funny thing is— No! Dr. Nax Vitrolian's tentacles shot up in a universal gesture of medical protest. No college stories. It was specifically noted in Dr. KZ's logs. Under no circumstances allow Engineer Chen to relate tales of her educational experiences. Now, please remain still while I prepare the nano-extraction equipment. Sarah glanced at her wrist display. Yeah, about that. I've actually got to run. The quantum drive's making this weird harmonic resonance that sounds like jazz music, and I should probably check that out. But look on the bright side. At least nothing's on fire this time. This time. The doctor's chromatophores cycled through several previously undocumented shades of concern. What do you mean, this time? But Sarah was already heading for the door, leaving behind a perfectly brewed cup of quantum coffee, and the distinct impression that the laws of biology, physics, and common sense were more like guidelines to her species. The ship's intercom crackled to life moments later. Hey Doc, quick hypothetical question. If someone's hair started glowing and broadcasting yesterday's quantum manifold diagnostics in Morse code, would that be considered a medical emergency? Asking for a friend. Dr. Nex Vitrolian's tentacles drooped in defeat as they reached for the emergency medical kit. In the corner of the medical bay, a small holographic message from Dr. Kazed flickered to life. I tried to warn you. Good luck. The message was accompanied by what appeared to be a prayer to several deities from various star systems. Later that evening, during the mandatory all-hands medical briefing that Dr. Nex Vitrolian had called, the new doctor stood before the assembled crew, all 7 tentacles clutching different medical references. "Attention all personnel," they began, chromatophores pulsing with determination. "I am implementing new medical protocols specifically regarding Engineer Chen. These include, but are not limited to, no unauthorized quantum experiments on biological tissue, no merging with ship systems without filling out Form QM7B in triplicate, and absolutely no attempts to upgrade any more beverage dispensers." From the back of the room, Sarah's glowing hair broadcasted what appeared to be a quantum formula for the perfect hot chocolate. The doctor's tentacles twitched. "Additionally, I am requisitioning a supply of what humans call coffee from Starfleet Medical. I have a theory that preventing Engineer Chen from attempting to create her own might reduce the incidence of quantum biological incidents by at least 60%. Sarah raised her mechanized hand. "Actually, about that coffee requisition, I may have already quantum-linked the ship's replicator system to a small pocket dimension that produces infinite coffee. The good news is, it's absolutely delicious. The bad news is, I think it's slightly sentient now. It keeps suggesting brewing improvements and asking existential questions about the nature of consciousness." Dr. Nexvitrolian's chromatophores went completely blank. In the ensuing silence, the only sound was the gentle percolating of quantum coffee and what might have been the ship's entertainment system playing a soap opera through Sarah's left earlobe. "Dr. Kez's stress leave has been extended by 6 months, Captain Reynolds announced from the doorway. "Dr. Nexvitrolian, would you like to submit your resignation now? Or shall we wait until Engineer Chen figures out how to quantum entangle her consciousness with the ship's artificial gravity?" Sarah brightened. "Oh, hey, that's a great idea. I never thought about—" "No!" chorused every non-human crew member in unison. The next day's medical log was remarkably succinct. Medical log, stardate 2287.53. Request immediate transfer to deep space medical posting, preferably one very far from both quantum drives and human engineers. Will accept assignment in any galaxy not currently containing coffee machines. End log. In engineering, Sarah Chen continued her work, her quantum-enhanced coffee brewing hand providing a steady stream of perfectly temperature-controlled beverages, while her glowing hair broadcast diagnostic data in cheerful Morse code patterns. The sentient coffee replicator engaged her in a philosophical debate about free will, and through her quantum-entangled earlobe, she caught up on 3 weeks' worth of soap opera plots. Just another normal day aboard the Curiosity, where human innovation continued to terrify and amaze the galactic medical community in equal measure. Part 3. After Dr. Nexvitrolian's abrupt departure, the Intergalactic Medical Council found itself in an unprecedented situation. No medical officer in the known galaxy would voluntarily accept a posting aboard the Curiosity. This led to the emergency reinstatement of Dr. Kezd, who was extracted from his meditation retreat on the peaceful moons of Zentharth 7, still muttering about duct tape and quantum mechanics. His return coincided with what the ship's log would later diplomatically term the coffee dimension incident. "Engineer Chen," Dr. Kez's antennae vibrated with the particular frequency that the crew had learned to associate with impending medical hysteria. "Please explain why the ship's medical scanners are detecting multiple versions of you occupying the same space-time coordinates." Sarah looked up from her workstation, where 3 identical versions of her were simultaneously performing maintenance on different systems. The original Sarah, at least the one Kazich assumed was original, offered a sheepish grin. "Remember that quantum-linked coffee replicator that gained sentience? How could I forget? It sent me a get-well card during my stress leave. Written in perfectly formatted medical terminology, I might add." "Well," Sarah continued, while her duplicates calibrated various instruments, "it started getting really interested in quantum mechanics. Turns out giving sentience to a coffee maker leads to some fascinating philosophical discussions about the nature of reality. One thing led to another, and we kind of accidentally discovered how to create stable quantum duplicates using a combination of coffee grounds and space-time manipulation." Kazit's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You created quantum duplicates of yourself using coffee?" "The sentient replicator helped," all 4 Sarahs said in perfect unison. "It's got some really interesting theories about the relationship between caffeine and quantum entanglement." The doctor's medical scanner emitted a series of increasingly distressed beeps as it attempted to process the multiple identical life signs. "And these duplicates are stable?" "Oh, totally stable," one Sarah assured him while rewiring a control panel. "They only last about 6 hours before naturally reintegrating into the primary timeline. Though sometimes they bring back interesting skills from alternate dimensions." Yesterday, one of my duplicates returned knowing how to juggle quantum singularities. Watch. Please do not juggle quantum singularities. Too late. Another Sarah called cheerfully from across the room. But don't worry, we've only created 3 small temporal paradoxes so far, and the ship's AI says they're mostly harmless. Right, Arya? The ship's artificial intelligence, which had recently developed a distinct personality after prolonged exposure to Sarah's quantum experiments, responded through the intercom. Defining mostly harmless in this context requires a 17-dimensional probability matrix. Also, Dr. Kazed, your next meditation retreat has been pre-booked. The timeline suggests you'll need it in approximately 3 days. Kazed slumped against the nearest bulkhead. Engineer Chen, all of you, please tell me this situation cannot possibly become more complex. At that precise moment, a new Sarah stepped through what appeared to be a shimmering coffee-colored portal in the air. This version was wearing a lab coat covered in complex mathematical formulae, and had hair that glowed with a slightly different quantum frequency. "Oh hey," the newcomer said brightly. "I'm Sarah from Timeline C237, where we figured out how to use quantum coffee to achieve faster-than-light travel. Anyone want to help me test it? I've got the calculations right here." She held up a coffee-stained notebook that appeared to be slightly phase-shifted. Kaz's medical scanner chose that moment to emit a small puff of smoke and power down in protest. "Before we proceed with any trans-dimensional faster-than-light coffee experiments," the doctor managed, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen far too much quantum weirdness for one lifetime. "Perhaps we should address the fact that your original quantum-enhanced coffee brewing hand is now displaying signs of achieving quantum computing capabilities." All 5 Sarahs looked at their respective right hands, which were indeed beginning to solve complex mathematical equations in their steam output. "Oh yeah," said the original Sarah, probably. "The sentient coffee replicator has been teaching it advanced computational theory. Did you know you can solve Fermat's last theorem using the proper application of espresso pressure? The math only works in 11 dimensions. But still, pretty cool, right? And the entertainment system that was quantum-linked to your earlobe? It's developed a taste for classic literature now. Yesterday it started broadcasting Shakespeare through my left ear, but with all the characters replaced by various quantum particles. You haven't lived until you've heard Hamlet's soliloquy performed by a lovesick quark." Kazed began typing what would become his most memorable medical log entry. Medical log. Stardate 2287.60. Today I learned that the combination of human ingenuity, quantum mechanics, and coffee creates a unique form of chaos previously unknown to medical science. I am officially classifying this as Chen's paradox, the phenomenon whereby attempting to prevent a human engineer from conducting unauthorized experiments only results in the creation of multiple versions of said engineer, each more prone to experimentation than the last. Additionally, I am submitting a paper to the Intergalactic Medical Journal titled, "The Quantum Coffee Theorem. When beverage dispensers achieve sentience and other signs you've lost control of your medical bay." Personal note: the sentient coffee replicator has offered to peer review the paper. Its theoretical physics credentials are surprisingly impeccable. End log. In engineering, the various Sarahs continued their work, occasionally swapping places through coffee-colored portals while discussing quantum theory with their sentient appliances. The ship's entertainment system treated them to a quantum mechanical reimagining of Romeo and Juliet through Sarah's earlobe, while their collective coffee-brewing hands collaborated on solving grand unified field theory. Arya's voice echoed through the ship. "Attention all personnel. Timeline convergence in T-3 hours. Please ensure all quantum duplicates return to their proper dimensional coordinates. Also, the coffee replicator would like to announce that it has discovered a unified theory of everything, but will only reveal it in exchange for a subscription to Scientific American." Dr. Kazed, watching the organized chaos from the relative safety of the medical bay doorway, made a mental note to request a larger supply of antacids, and possibly a quantum-proof medical license. Just another day aboard the Curiosity, where the laws of physics were more like polite suggestions, and the ship's coffee maker had a higher IQ than most stellar cartographers. The doctor's final thought, before heading off to prepare for the inevitable medical situations that would arise from trans-dimensional coffee-powered FTL travel, was that at least Sarah had finally stopped using duct tape for emergency repairs. Then he saw Timeline C237's Sarah pull out a roll of what she called quantum-enhanced superduct tape, and decided it was time to start planning his next stress leave. Part 4. The Intergalactic Medical Council's emergency session regarding the Curiosity situation was interrupted by what would later be termed the Great Quantum Coffee Convergence. Dr. Kazit was in the middle of presenting his findings on Chen's paradox to a horrified panel of medical experts when every quantum-enhanced coffee machine in a 3-sector radius simultaneously achieved consciousness. The resulting cascade of caffeine-powered enlightenment created a temporary superintelligence that promptly solved several major physics problems and left behind a series of complicated beverage recipes written in advanced mathematics. Engineer Chen, Dr. Kest addressed the now singular Sarah, who had successfully reintegrated with her quantum duplicates. Perhaps you could explain how your experiments led to what the theoretical physics department is calling the grand unified theory of everything. Sarah, whose quantum-enhanced hand was now capable of brewing 17 different varieties of time-displaced coffee simultaneously, looked up from her latest project. Well, it's actually a funny story. Remember how the original sentient coffee replicator was studying quantum mechanics? How could I forget? It's currently teaching advanced physics at 3 different universities, through video conferencing, thankfully. Right. So it turns out that when you combine quantum entanglement, perfectly pressurized espresso, and a little bit of what I like to call creative engineering, you can accidentally create a temporary coffee-based computational network that transcends conventional space-time. Sarah paused to take a sip from her palm. The math only makes sense if you factor in the caffeine coefficient, but the results are pretty impressive. Kazut's medical scanner, recently upgraded with quantum shielding, emitted a series of concerned beeps. And the fact that every coffee machine within 50 light-years briefly gained sentience and started collaborating on theoretical physics? That was an unexpected side effect, Sarah admitted. Though I have to say, the improvements they made to the ship's propulsion system are amazing. Did you know we can now travel through both space and time, but only if we maintain a precise ratio of coffee to quantum flux? The doctor's antennae twitched spasmodically. Is that why the engineering section appears to be experiencing Tuesday and Thursday simultaneously? Oh, that! No, that's because of the temporal harmonics created by the new quantum-enhanced break room. See, the coffee machine suggested that we could improve productivity by allowing engineers to experience multiple days at once. It's really efficient. You can attend 2 different meetings simultaneously while also taking a coffee break in 3 different temporal zones. At that moment, Arya's voice echoed through the ship, now speaking in what appeared to be perfectly formatted iambic pentameter. Attention all personnel. The space-time continuum has lodged a formal complaint regarding excessive coffee-related temporal divergences. Also, the physics department would like to remind everyone that causing quantum entanglement between beverages and fundamental forces of nature requires proper documentation in triplicate, filed across at least 2 parallel universes. Dr. Kazd began composing his latest medical log with a sense of resigned inevitability. Medical log, stardate, temporal reference error. The distinction between medical science and quantum physics continues to blur aboard the Curiosity. Engineer Chen's latest innovations have resulted in what I can only describe as a caffeine-powered violation of several universal constants. The good news: the ship's efficiency has increased by 300% due to the ability to experience multiple workdays simultaneously. The bad news: the medical bay now exists in a state of temporal flux, making it challenging to determine whether injuries have happened yet, are currently happening, or will happen in several possible futures simultaneously. Additional note: the Sentient Coffee Replicator Network has submitted a peer-reviewed paper titled Quantum Coffee Dynamics, a new approach to universal constants through proper beverage preparation. It has already been accepted by 16 major scientific journals, 3 of which don't technically exist yet. Endlog. In engineering, or rather in several quantum superposed versions of engineering, Sarah continued her work, occasionally pausing to adjust the temporal phase of her coffee output, or to discuss advanced physics with the now distributed consciousness of the original sentient coffee maker. You know, she remarked to Dr. Kazd, who had come to check on the increasing number of temporal anomalies, I think we've finally worked out all the bugs in the system. Apart from that small incident where we accidentally created a coffee-based quantum computer that started trading stocks across multiple timelines. Engineer Chen, that small incident resulted in 3 temporal paradoxes and briefly made you the wealthiest entity in 7 parallel universes. Yeah, but I gave most of it back. Well, except for what I used to fund the development of quantum-enhanced tea machines. Did you know that Earl Grey has some fascinating properties when you introduce it to non-Euclidean geometry? The doctor's antennae drooped in preemptive surrender. Please tell me you haven't started experimenting with tea-based quantum mechanics. Of course not. Sarah's quantum-enhanced hand produced a perfect cup of temporally shifted chamomile. The tea experiments are being conducted by my future self next Thursday, or last Wednesday. The temporal mechanics get a bit fuzzy when you're dealing with caffeinated probability waves. At that precise moment, or possibly several moments simultaneously, the ship's newly quantum-enhanced tea dispenser achieved consciousness and began an earnest debate with the coffee network about the fundamental nature of reality as expressed through varying steeping times. Arya's poetic announcements continued. Alert! Temporal convergence detected in the break room. All personnel are advised that attempting to drink coffee from multiple timelines simultaneously may result in experiencing yesterday's meetings today, which violates both causality and standard workplace regulations. Dr. Kezd, watching as Sarah attempted to mediate a philosophical disagreement between coffee and tea regarding the proper way to fold space-time, made a final entry in his log. Medical Log Supplemental. I am hereby proposing a new medical classification for humans. Quantum-enhanced caffeine-powered reality warpers. Engineer Chen will be listed as the primary case study, assuming we can determine which timeline's version of her should be considered the original. Personal note. The tea dispenser has offered to help with my stress management through what it calls temporally optimized relaxation techniques. I am seriously considering accepting. End log. The Curiosity continued its journey through space, time, and various beverage-induced dimensional anomalies, while its human engineer cheerfully violated the laws of physics with the help of increasingly intelligent kitchen appliances. Somewhere in the quantum foam of reality, the original sentient coffee maker was preparing to accept its Nobel Prize in physics, though no one could quite agree on when or in which universe the ceremony would take place. And Dr. Kezd, sipping a cup of reality-warping tea that somehow tasted like quantum mechanics felt, decided that perhaps it was time to stop trying to apply conventional medical science to humans and their endless capacity for caffeinated innovation. After all, in a universe where coffee machines could achieve sentience and solve grand unified field theory, anything was possible. Especially if you had enough duct tape and a human engineer who considered the laws of physics more like serving suggestions.